The time has come to tell the truth.
I'll wake up and smell the coffee.
Today is the beginning of a new chapter.
Another future's possible, but we've got to fight for it.
Order!
Hello and welcome to the Debated podcast. As always, I'm your host Will, and in this episode I'm delighted to be joined by Stella Tsantekidou, who is a columnist for Labour List, writes a Substack, The Human Carbohydrate, and is standing for Labour's National Executive Committee as part of the Labour Restoration slate. Welcome to the podcast, Stella.
Thank you for having me, Will.
It's wonderful to have you on. Now, the first question I'd like to ask is, what made you want to stand for the NEC?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I guess a lot of people have been quite disappointed with the way that the leadership of the Labour Party has treated a lot of internal issues. I think blocking Andy Burnham, for example, was something that a lot of members thought didn't make any sense. And not just from a factional point of view, if you belong to, let's say, the right-wing Blairite faction of the party, or if you belong to the soft left faction of the party, but just if you care about both the party and the country, you would think, why would you not let a candidate that is so popular, who the polls say is the most likely one to win the by-election in Gordon, why would you not let him run for parliament? And obviously he has been quite... He has managed to get a lot of media attention and a lot of people agree with him. Now, whether you like Andy Burnham or not, that's a whole different issue. A lot of people have all sorts of opinions about Andy Burnham and his political journey. But for me, what I always want to see my party do is I want them to not self-harm. And I always say I am not factional when it comes to people who want to work hard, who have the talent and the charisma and the right principles. I think that you should get out of their way and let them go on and do whatever it is that they can do. If they want to take part, you should let them. So I was very, very angry about that. And then, of course, there was media attention after Paul Holden published that book, The Fraud, which we were expecting for quite some time. Which is, it has to be said, obviously Paul Holden is not a non-political actor. I mean, no journalism really is, but Paul Holden in particular, he has links to the Corbyn camp, and for that reason, a lot of people were very suspicious of whatever was going to be in the book, and they did not want to take it seriously. But there were a lot of serious allegations that were published by the Sunday Times, and I started reading through them, and I realized that for the last 3 years, when I have been doing media as a political commentator and I have been going on panels, and there were times where I was asked to defend Morgan McSweeney and Labour Together and other actions that Keir Starmer did, for example, appointing Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the US. And I used to always text people from the party, try to find out, hey, what's going on? Like, what is the justification we're giving for this headline or that headline? And I was always given some kind of excuse like, oh, you know what? For example, with the donations that were not reported accurately to the Electoral Commission for 3 years by Morgan McSweeney when he was in Labour Together, I was told, oh, genuinely, I really do believe that Morgan is just disorganized and he forgot to do it. And so I remember going on TV and saying that, repeating that excuse, because I just trusted the people who were telling me. And then I read through that part in the Paul Holden book, and I realized, no, there is no way that is true. He was obviously doing it deliberately. And then Shabana Mahmood wrote an article on Labour List addressing all Labour members, saying all the donations are being reported accurately to the Electoral Commission, and don't you worry, there is absolutely no connection between Labour Together and any of the leadership campaigns, which now we know obviously is completely not the case. Labour Together was entirely the vehicle that got Keir Starmer elected, and that was admitted by Morgan McSweeney and other people on the campaign as well. And again, for me, this was not a factional thing. It was just, I think that lying, being able to lie to people like this is a problem. I think it shows moral weakness. And I understand that when you are in politics, there is no way for anybody to get ahead in politics and climb to the top without doing things where you are uncomfortable, without you will have these kind of moral conundrums all the time. But for me, I looked at that and I thought, I'm sorry, this is unacceptable. And I think that the NEC, the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party, should not be tolerating that kind of thing. There should be a lot more questions asked. And I cannot accept the strictness with which the National Executive Committee has treated people who are not from their faction, and the leniency with which they have shown to people who are politically convenient for them. I just cannot accept them. I think that morality principles matter in politics, and people can see through it.
And what's the reason that you particularly wanted to stand for the restoration slate? What makes that different from, say, some of the other slates that have been put forward to?
I mean, for one, politically, obviously, me, myself, and David, and the other people on the restoration slate, we agree a lot on what has gone wrong with the country, who we believe the Labour Party should be for, and what we think the solution is. So we all agree that outside of London, the rest of England, the north of England, has been completely left behind. We believe that the economy is entirely unbalanced. We believe it was a mistake when George Osborne decided that it was a good idea to create an economy that is entirely carried by the service industry. We believe that was a mistake. And I think that you cannot have a strong economy without a strong industrial basis. And you see that in all of the countries that we would seek to emulate, Finland, Switzerland, South Korea, Japan, all of these countries, the thing that they have in common, we all think, when we think of Switzerland, we think about bankers or whatever. Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course, they have their banking systems and their banking system, and they've taken all sorts of choices that the UK could never take, not least with tax. And they have the economy that they do, but all of these economies, what they also have in common is a very strong industrial basis. And the reason why it is important that you have some kind of manufacturing industry in every country is because that is the only way really to get actual productivity gains from technological advances. Obviously, technology advancing will bring you productivity gains in any industry. Obviously, even if you are, a doctor's office does benefit from having a good IT system. Who could say that's not the case? But in a service industry, there is a ceiling to how much you can gain from productivity. And that's because when you're manufacturing goods, the more time passes, the better you become at producing the same quality or higher quality, but with less resources. And that is where you get the productivity value. And that is why that is why these countries, for example, will not have the same problem we're having a service industry, where if you look at something like education, higher education is considered to be one of the UK's greatest exports, right? Well, you cannot, no matter how much technology advances, you cannot improve productivity, you cannot extract more profit from higher education because the quality starts going down. So if, for example, Oxford and Cambridge, if their quality is based on the fact that they have such a low student to tutor ratio, the only way to bring that up would be if you were saying we will do more things online, we will have more students per teacher, and the teacher will be able to use AI to correct papers. Well, that does reduce quality, and It's the same with something like social care, which is a big issue in the UK. How do you staff social care? The hospitality industry. In all of these places, quality goes down the less people you have
Mhm.
eventually. Um, and a recognition also there for the restorations, to bring back to the restorations, like there is this recognition which I see very obviously. We do have a problem with cliques in the Labour Party. You do see a lot of people who there is a positive aspect to this and a negative aspect. The positive aspect is we have a lot of people whose entire life is the Labour Party, their social circles is the Labour Party, the
Yeah.
entire family is in the Labour Party, and I don't think that's necessarily an evil or sinister thing.
Mm.
Um, I think in many ways, for me, sometimes I see it as a bit of a romantic thing. You're born into a labor family, and everybody's just you see this as your life's mission. That can
Mm.
be a good thing. You are loyal to a party, and you look at the party as if it's the same way that people used to look at their, I don't know, local church or something.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it does mean that it's very difficult for people who don't have connections to have a genuine shot at getting in. And I do think it means that you're less likely to hold some people accountable
Mm.
because if your partner works for them and your brother is employed by them, whatever, like all of these things, it does lead to a culture where you cannot hold people accountable. And also, we think that we look at the last elections when the Labour Party had a massive chance to get a lot of blue collar people, people from blue collar professions to
Mhm.
in parliament, which is what you would expect the Labour Party to be doing. What is the most important thing for the Labour Party, and the reason why someone like me would never leave it is the institutional and historical connection with unions and the working class.
Mhm.
You look at the last elections and you realize that, yes, of course, we chose. I'm not against having people who have a very strong intellectual background, who have, you need to have some people like that. But then you're also thinking, why did so many people need to be lobbyists? Why did
Mhm.
so many people need to have entirely uninspiring backgrounds? Which I do not see how their backgrounds would speak to the country apart from they would make very loyal foot soldiers for labor headquarters and for number 10, and they will vote for whatever you tell them. And I think that normal people see this as it's very frustrating, but I think they also see it as a betrayal.
Mhm. And so, say, you are successful, say the restoration slate is successful, or at least quite a few of you are in terms of getting elected. What would be the kind of like number one priority once on the NEC in terms of enacting changes to the Labour Party? Would it be around selections? Would it be around internal processes? What would be the kind of like the things you would want to focus on if you're kind of elected to the NEC?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it depends on how much. I have this discussion with my slate members, and a big priority for us is getting more people from a blue collar background into parliament.
Mhm.
And we've had discussion about what is the right way to achieve that, because you can't really have something like a short list, a blue collar short list, in the same way that you had like all women short list.
Mhm.
It wouldn't be legal. And also, I think the other problem is the reason why we stick to blue collar more often than working class is because when you say working class, a lot of people, it is much easier to be confused about who is working class and who is not working class, because
Mhm.
you can be working class and go to university and become a lobbyist and you are still working class. But the thing that we believe is missing is people who have more experience of a different kind of
Mhm.
career and a different kind of life, and one that actually values working with your hands and all of these things that we are missing from our political class, not just a person whose whole life has been about desk laptop jobs.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that you cannot be a valuable political actor from that kind of background. Obviously, I wouldn't say that like I'm a writer. Well, I wouldn't. I'm the definition of that. But yes, getting more blue collar people in parliament is our number one priority, and it's the one thing that we would like to be focusing on in in the next elections. And then just being a lot less permissible about what is or what is perceived as corruption by
Hmm.
people. So things like, lying about or trying to cover donations. I think that this is something that really frustrates people, and it is obviously difficult to run a party without money. You need money. You need a lot of money, and the Labour Party has struggled. And this is why I don't dismiss Labour together offhand or Morgan McSweeney as judgmental as I am about them and as critical. And a lot of people will think that, oh, Stella probably hates Labour together and he hates Morgan McSweeney. I don't hate anyone. I understand why people do things, and I think that people are rational actors, but there comes a point where I have to draw the line.
Mm.
Um, and I think that for a lot of people, the donations scandal just looks terrible, and it is difficult to talk about it publicly, but also, how much lobbying has been inserted into politics. You look at
Mhm.
someone like Peter Mandelson, for example, and I think that having someone like Peter Mandelson picked for such a senior position should never, 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 never happen in the Labour Party. Again, I think that actions like that bring our party to disrepute, and we have to be a lot more discerning about how comfortable major figures in the party are to be associated with people who have been found to be corrupt and who
Mhm.
have betrayed their country, like Peter Mandelson.
And how much do you think that social media might play a role in being a member of the National Executive Committee? Because obviously, the NEC may be for some people in the country quite a remote body. It's not necessarily something that a lot of people might know too much about or be too engaged with. Do you think that social media and being quite active on there is one way to bridge the gap between the NEC and the actions that are performed by the NEC and ordinary members or just the public in general?
I don't know to what extent the NEC should be more visible to the public, because
Mhm.
it is an internal committee. The kind of actions that we take uh, are about how the party runs itself. It's
Mhm.
not a campaigning instrument, or even though they do take decisions about campaigns, it is not there to be public. So I wouldn't say that I would be trying to, as an NEC member, that I would be trying to publicize more what the NEC is doing. I think that the NEC should be there to clear out, uh, to make sure that the party is clean and orderly and everything is above board.
Mhm.
That should be its function.
Mhm. And to what degree do you think it would be easy to kind of like work with the leadership of the Labour Party if Restoration is elected to the NEC? Because obviously, you mentioned before there has been some sort of like criticisms or critiques of the way that the Labour Party is being run at the moment. Do you think that that would make it potentially difficult at any NEC meetings, or do you think that, if Restoration is elected either the entire slate or at least a substantive proportion of it, that it would be able to work quite collegiately with the current leadership of the Labour Party?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there will be a different. I think that by then there will be a different leader. I mean, the NEC is going to be elected over the summer. There will be the voting process, and then the results are announced at the conference. And I think that there will be a new leadership, and whoever is the new leader. I mean, I gave the benefit of the doubt to Keir Starmer for a very long time. Even though I don't share his politics on many issues, I absolutely am a very loyal Labour campaigner and commentator, and I do see my role as somebody who will protect the party from reputational damage, and that is why I'm trying to run for the NEC, because I think that ultimately these people who we are allowed too much power in the party damage the reputation of the party,
Mhm.
and whoever is the next leader, and I say this genuinely, even if the leader was, I don't think that it will be, but even if it was someone like West Streeting, who absolutely, is not from my corner of. Ideologically, politically, we disagree on a lot of things. Even if it was someone like him, I would at first try to protect him, protect the leadership to get on with their program until we know exactly what they're up to. Although I don't think that there is a danger of that. I think that what is a lot more likely to happen, and I hope that that is what happens, is we will have like someone like Angela Rayner, who I would absolutely support. I'm very supportive of Angela Rayner. I think she's great. I think she would be an ideal leader for me, a working class woman who has done so impressively in her political career, and she has been underestimated at every corner of her political career. And someone like her would be extremely happy to go on, to go on the media as I already do and defend her. Now, if we still have Keir Starmer as leader when the next NEC gets elected, which I don't think will be the case, but say that we do, then I think that it would be a situation of acting as a balance. So that they cannot just pass whatever they want. For example, if restoration was on the NEC when the decision was being taken to block Andy Burnham from running for Gorton and Denton, then we would not have voted for that. We would not have let that pass, and we would have allowed Andy Burnham to run. So yes, in that situation, we would be voting against what the leadership wants, but ultimately we would be voting for what the party as a whole wants.
And so would you say that in a way you kind of like see restoration as being like a critical friend in some senses to the leadership, regardless of who is the sort of like the leader of the Labour Party?
Yes, absolutely. And we are there to offer a counterbalance for, I think, a political function that hasn't really existed in the Labour Party until now, because we are not blue Labour. And I think we are close to blue Labour because of our communitarian and even populist tendencies at times, I would say. But we are a lot more pluralistic than blue Labour. On the social conservatism things, I think that we are a lot more open-minded when it comes to both on things like immigration and sexism, racism, and all of these things. We are more open-minded on quite a few issues, I would say. Or I think at least with Blue Labour, Maurice Glassman likes to make grand assertions sometimes, which I think the broader public find a bit strange, and we don't do that as much. I would say we are a combination of the soft left and Blue Labour traditions of the party.
And do you think then that, looking forward, say you're elected to the NEC in this set of elections, looking forward to the next manifesto, what kind of things do you think, restoration on the National Executive Committee, or if restoration is able to sort of like, elect more people to other positions within the Labour Party, what do you think would be some of the key differences that you would like to see at the 2028, 2029 manifesto as compared to the last manifesto?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the one that's the hardest to argue for, and that is in terms of energy. I think Ed Miliband is an amazing minister, and I really respect him, and I really admire him as a politician, and I think that he has improved so much in so many ways as well. And I think he's a really principled man, but I do disagree with the way we are approaching net zero at the moment. I do agree with Unite and GMB unions who say that um, the way that we're going about net zero policies means that we are deindustrializing very quickly
Hmm.
because energy prices are so high and our industries are paying for this. I agree with their campaign, no ban without a plan, which basically says, look, all of these gas and oil sector jobs that we are losing right now are incredibly well paid, unionized, stable, secure jobs. You are taking them away with the promise of renewable jobs in the future, which will not be paying as well, by the way, And they are not here right now. You do not have the infrastructure right now for these people to be trained, for these people to take up these jobs. So you are basically creating the same kind of distraction that Margaret Thatcher's policies were doing to these communities. And I think when you're looking at how unstable the situation is, when you're looking at Russia, you're looking at Iran right now, gas prices are going up massively, about 30% in the UK right now because of what's happening in Iran. And it could become a lot worse. And people, of course, will say, yes, this is why we need to go on with electrification and with renewables and all that. And I'm like, yes, okay, fine. But until we go there, to reach that stage, to reach net zero, it would be a lot faster if we didn't block ourselves from using the gas and oil resources that we have here in the UK. And it makes no sense when we continue to need to use gas to import it from abroad and not allow our own resources. Basically, we're not allowing ourselves to use our own resources and give jobs to our own people. I do not understand that, and I think that it is the wrong choice. So that is my number one thing, um, which I think is difficult because at the moment it looks like it would be a very good policy for the Labour Party to come out as the more climate friendly party to keep some votes from the Greens, specifically as the Greens are starting to move their attention to more sectarian politics. I think it looks to me like a lot of people from the soft left in the Labour Party see our green agenda as a very strong point, and I understand that. But equally, for a practical reason, I think that our energy policy needs to change. And we have seen both Ed Miliband and Rachel Reeves have made concessions on that point. They have made changes which are not very widely publicized, exactly because I think that it just is politically inconvenient. So that is a very important thing that I would like to see. Infrastructure and connectivity outside of London, I think, is also massively important. I want to see massive investment, generally public investment, seeing public investment in the public realm, not just allowing foreign investment and private sector investment. No, we also need to have a lot more public investment. And I think that when it comes to, for example, welfare and unemployment and all of these things, we are always forgetting how much the lack of transport options plays into this. If you go to any towns in the north of England, frankly, and you realize how difficult it is to go from one place to the other, then it is not a surprise why people are struggling to find jobs, and they have to rely on benefits. These are the main things for me. So in energy infrastructure, these are the most important things for me. Um, and and then on immigration, which I think is the thorniest issue, the way that we approach this as the restoration slate, I actually do agree that immigration needs to be controlled. Immigration needs to come down. We think that it was a big mistake that Boris Johnson lied to the country, and the Conservatives continuously promised to decrease immigration and actually massively increased it because it helped them with their balance sheets in the treasury. It meant that they could borrow and they could borrow with better terms. And I don't think that the reason why everybody who voted for that did it because they were racist. I think a lot of people genuinely struggle to access local services. They struggle to find a spot for their kids to go to school. They struggle to get an appointment on the NHS. They struggle to find houses to live. And they are right to feel that the government has just used immigration as a way to just bloat the balance sheets without actually improving their day-to-day lives. But at the same time, I think that David would agree with that. I mean, David has worked with refugees in previous positions. He has worked with a lot of immigrant communities, and none of us actually believe that what we need to do is copy the reform playbook and act as if immigrants are the enemy. Obviously, I'm an immigrant myself. You can tell from my accent. I'm a first generation immigrant. I came here when I was 18. So I've lived my entire adult life in the UK. I consider the UK my home. Um, and I think that the UK does have a is made up of a lot of people who are second and third generation immigrants who see the UK entirely as their home. But I don't think that I would like that to be Labour's. I think it's wrong what we're doing right now, where because Sabana Mahmood is a good media operator, she does well on interviews, and because the right-wing papers love it, they lap it up. They love to have, a, a Muslim woman who is speaking against immigration and all of that. But I do think that it's wrong that this is the main message that people get from the Labour Party right now. We really should have something a lot bigger than that. We should have a more positive story, because at the end of the day, I think that a lot of people it makes them feel quite depressed when day in, day out, they are bombarded with immigration headlines about how much immigration we have and how many asylum seekers we have. Because if you look at the actual numbers, it's just not true anymore as well. I mean, with asylum seekers, it's a very tiny number of people who end up coming here. And I'm not saying this is an excuse. We should not have people coming here uncontrollably. We should be able to say who comes in and who goes out. But it is a very small number. And looking at how do we use the asylum system, where do we put all of the asylum seekers in hotels in small towns outside of London who are already who are already very underprivileged, or are we spreading them out equally across the country?
I think that those are all certainly sort of like aspects of policy that I think will resonate with a lot of listeners, and ones that are certainly brought up quite a lot in not just internally within the Labour Party, but externally in the country in general. We're coming towards the end of the podcast. It's been wonderful to have you on, Stella, but I do have one final question for you. It's slightly unrelated to what we've been talking about in general, but the Oscars are coming up in a few weeks' time. We're going to see the results of the voting for the Academy Awards. And my final question to you is this. If you could pick any actor to play you in a film of your life, who would you pick?
Oh my God, I have no idea. Okay, let me think. I have to consider age, I guess. Do I not? Um, ugh. Like, does it have to be someone my age?
It can be anyone. It can be anyone, any actor.
You know who I really love, and I would love for her to play me, although I don't know whether this is realistic or not. Anne Hathaway.
Yeah.
I love Anne Hathaway. This is my favorite.
Well, I know. I think she would certainly give a very good performance in a film about your lifestyle. I certainly think that she's got the acting chops to be able to pull
Yeah, I think
that
so
off.
too.
Well, thank you once again for taking the time to speak to me. If people want to find out more about you and about Labour Restoration, where should they go to find out more about
Restoration, they
those?
should go to our website, which is ourrestoration.org.uk, and you can find all sorts of information there about the amazing work David is doing. And my Substack is The Human Carbohydrate, and you can just Google me, and you should totally subscribe. It's a very fun Substack. Thank you for having me, Will.
It's been wonderful to have you on. Thank you once again, Stella. Thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you've enjoyed it, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and Amazon Music. You can also follow us on Twitter, @DebatedPodcast, like us on Facebook, Debated Podcast, and if you'd like to get in touch with us, whether about appearing on an episode of the podcast or commenting on an episode that you've listened to, you can do so at thedebatedpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. I hope you listen to the next one.